Hey, y'all. So this is just kind of an addendum to the Sunday podcast sermon thing. And the reason is that I already crammed too much into a 5 pound sack in the thing anyway. So there's no way that I could have added this in there. I was thinking about it all week because I'm working on two different things at the same time, right? So I'm doing Sunday, but then I'm also working on the daily podcast, which right now is about worldview stuff. And so I've just been working through sort of after death beliefs for Judaism that has to do with eschatology, but it also has to do with what happens, right after you die, kind of a thing. And so the Sunday podcast, the gospel lesson was the laborers in the vineyard. So you got a man that goes out, he owns a vineyard, he goes out, he finds some laborers early in the morning, and he hires them for a denarius a day, which is the daily wage. And then he goes back 3 hours later, and then 3 hours later, and then right at the end of the day, and he hires these people, and he just says, we'll settle up at the end of the day. And so at the end of the day, he gives the people who'd been there an hour, he gives them a denarius. So the other people are thinking, oh, well, we're going to get a bonus. And they don't, and they're not happy. And so the man says, are you jealous or angry about my generosity that I can do with what I have, my own stuff? And so the other thing that I was thinking about, because I was thinking about this whole death thing and what happens after you die within Judaism. So there's two different things that can happen when you die. If you're a righteous person, then your soul goes to the Garden of Eden. And if you're not, it hangs out there until the final judgment and the new creation. If you're not a righteous person, then your soul goes down to Sheol, and it's just a waiting place. It's the place of the dead. It's not hell. So don't hear it that way. It's just the place of the unrighteous dead. Now they will be judged ultimately, but so the people who have a place in the life of the world to come are going to be in the Garden of Eden. The word for that is Pardes, Pardes, which we translate as paradise. So what I want to tell you about, just real quick, is I was reflecting on the thief on the cross. So Jesus hanging on the cross, thieves on either side of him, one of them giving him a hard time, reviling him, cursing him, and all that kind of stuff. The other one, however, sees, which is absolutely the most amazing statement of faith you'll ever see. Three men on a cross. One looks at the guy in the middle and says, hey, remember me when you come into your kingdom. I mean, that's a guy who's got some faith. That's a guy who's seeing something. If he's saying, remember me when you come into your kingdom, to a man who's dying on a cross with him, that's pretty impressive. Jesus looks at him and says, today you'll be with me in paradise, right? So here's the thing. So if there's a crowd of Jews at the bottom of that cross and they hear Jesus say that, then their reaction to that is absolute and utter fury. Because remember, in Leviticus, it says that cursed is he who hangs on a tree. And so in their mind, the reason they wanted to crucify him rather than any other form of death, it actually had to do with reinforcing the idea that he's cursed, that he's committed this blasphemy. Therefore, the only thing you can do is you can put him on a cross because he has committed blasphemy, which means that he is accursed. And so they see this, they hear Jesus say, you'll be with me in paradise. And their response to that would be, oh, wow. That's arrogance at a level that's absolutely impossible to even imagine. That you, a cursed man, are going to be in paradise today? Are you serious? And a dude on the cross next to you is going to be in paradise as well? Not too likely. But it's exactly what happens. And so that man, in my mind, represents those who are hired at the last moment. But the level of faith that man had surpassed pretty much the level of faith anybody almost expressed in Jesus. The Syrophoenician woman being kind of an example, the Samaritan woman at the well who believes that he may be Messiah. Those people's faith is pretty extraordinary. But the guy on the cross, if you can see another man dying on a cross like you and believe that he's getting ready to come into a kingdom, you got a word, right? I mean, you got a word from the Lord if you believe that. And so when Jesus says, you will be with me today in paradise, he is using the most Jewish form of understanding what comes next that you'll ever see. But that's the belief, actually, is that you will spend time in a Garden of Eden, and you will be there until the time of the final judgment and the resurrection happens, and you'll come back from there. That's your soul. It's more complicated than that, of course, but that's part of your soul, because your soul gets split into two. One goes to there, and another part stays with the body and watches over it until that resurrection day, and then it does something, and from a little bone the size of a nut, called a luz bone, L-U-Z, you're resurrected from the dead. So, as I said, it's more complicated. But at any rate, that's not the point of this. The point of this is to say that when Jesus says that, he's speaking into directly of Jewish eschatological beliefs. And so it's a place where you go before the final judgment. You don't go to heaven. You go to this other place called paradise. So that's exactly the context of it. But the other context has to do with that parable of the laborers in the vineyard. So at any rate, God bless. Hope you have a great week.